Hello and welcome to ED 584. This is module 4. I've been under the weather the last week. Had a really bad head cold, may have been the flu, but I'm on the mend. It feels like I'm on the backside of that bad cold. You can probably hear it in my voice. I thought about just going in and using last year's introduction to module 4, but ended up, you know what, I'll struggle through this, get through it, and get the updated version up there. So let's go ahead and we will get started with module 4. I might go through this a little bit faster than I normally do. So, okay, so there you have my screen, the home page, and now let's go into module 4. And here we go. And the photo, because this module is around the time of Abraham Lincoln's birthday, and I'm from Illinois. We didn't have President's Day off. We had Abraham Lincoln's birthday off from school. And President Lincoln is from Illinois, land of Lincoln. He was actually born in Kentucky, Hodgenville, Kentucky. It's actually a stop on the Kentucky Bourbon highway trail. He grew up in, or he was born in Bourbon country in Kentucky. Then he moved to Indiana. Before he was elected president, he was a trial lawyer and rode the circuit in Illinois. And there was a strange case that involved the farmer who owned our ground at the time and the farmer, a neighboring farmer. It's my understanding that farmer owned my family's farm, killed the other farmer, and Lincoln was a part of the investigation on that. We think he came out to the farm, but we have not found anything that can confirm that 100%. So not too long after that whole thing, my great-great-grandfather, who had immigrated from Germany, purchased the family, and our farm has been in the family ever since. So, and these are photos I've taken. The Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., Lincoln's tomb in Springfield, Illinois, and Lincoln's grave inside the tomb. So let's go ahead and we'll get going. And there is the recording, which you're watching now. So the purpose of Module 4 serves as a transition from our study of descriptive statistics, probability, normal distributions, and sampling distributions to that of hypothesis testing and inferential statistical procedures in education. Inferential procedures begin with the researcher articulating a hypothesis, which can be stated in the null or alternative forms about a population, and then testing that hypothesis to see if it appears to be correct based on an interpretation of statistical analysis. The goal of inferential statistics is to infer findings from a sample to that of a population. In review, a critical aspect that allows for this is that the sample has been selected through some form of random selection process. The extent to which we can correctly infer the sample findings to that of the population is called external validity. And I'm going to take a time out now and grab a bottle of water. I had it here close, but get a drink. For this module, we are particular concerned with hypothesis testing means. More specifically, we will examine the z-test procedure, which forms the basic foundation of many other procedures. The purpose of the z-test procedure is to test hypotheses concerning a single population with a known variance. Because the z-test requires information about the population that we often do not have, such as variance, we also begin to explore other procedures that are more commonly used. Specifically, we begin looking at one form of a t-test, that being a one independent sample t-test. This t-test procedure serves the same purpose as the z-test, but does not require us to know the population variance. We use the one independent sample t-test to compare our sample data to that of the known population parameter, mean in this case. We are interested to know if the population from which our sample was taken has the same mean value as that of the known population parameter. For a one independent samples t-test, the purported population mean is stated and is either being tested to see if in fact the purported value is valid or if a sample from another population is the same. Either way, the results indicates whether the sample mean is representative of the purported population mean. Two independent samples t-tests are also studied. This form of the t-test is used to investigate whether or not a statistical difference exists between groups. Assumptions associated with this test require that the sample was randomly selected, that the population from which the sample is drawn is normally distributed, and that two samples are independent from each other. Like other hypothesis tests, the null hypothesis is tested through the use of the t-test procedure. Finding a statistically significant difference leads us to follow-up procedure. Effect size is studied and calculated as a statistic that represents the size of the difference of a statistically significant finding. Power is then examined, and power represents the likelihood that we will reject the null hypothesis when in fact the null hypothesis is false. It's interesting to reflect on the fact that a statistically significant finding may not have any practical implications if the difference found is minimal, thus the importance of also examining effect size. One of the issues can be that with large sample sizes, very small differences between means may show a statistical difference that does not represent any real practical difference. That is where effect size comes into play, and many research journals require researchers to report the effect size of their findings within published research manuscripts. So let's go through. You can read the objectives at your convenience, and the assigned reading from the statistics for the behavioral sciences is chapter 8 on hypothesis testing. And then there's also the supporting PowerPoint slideshow. And I've also provided a YouTube video on hypothesis testing. And you can come in and watch it. And then there's also YouTube video on power and effect size. Chapter 9 from Statistics for the Behavioral Sciences is also assigned, and this goes into one sample and two sample t-test. And I've also provided YouTube videos for further explanation. And I even put together one from last year's running two independent sample t-tests. And then how to use SPSS and hypothesis testing and single sample t-test. And then post your reflective commentary. And then for the next module, we examine paired sample t-tests, estimation, and confidence intervals as addressed within chapters 10 and 11 of the SBS text. And go ahead and get started if you'd like to move ahead earlier with those readings. And I survived. I'll log out of here, drink some more water, and you've survived listening to me. Take care. See you next time.